Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Call of Cthulhu: The Lost Archive. This is number three. Now, for some reason, I'm not able to capture my desktop, which has the Oracle Gemini on there, so I will read off everything it says. Now, where we left off, we were in this administrative office for the anthropology and folklore department. When we were speaking to an individual who we don't know much info about. We don't know much about them yet. So let's ask the Oracle. Question for the Oracle: who are we speaking to right now? Does this individual have a name tag, a name badge? All right. So we're trying to inquire about who exactly is this person that's sitting behind the stack of uh, papers. And looks like we have some details here. Maybe we can actually listen to it.
The woman's name tag reads, Ms. Evelyn Walsh, Department Administrator.
Okay.
She eyes David with suspicion, her expression unwavering.
All right. So we're basically trying to speak to her. We're trying to. Right. So there was a story hack here before recording. I removed the 8 p.m. restriction that the card of Dr. or Professor Morgan, Professor Elias Price. I removed that little requirement that, any don't see him after until 8 p.m. or don't call or call after. I removed that. It's just his general business card or his general card contact information. So now we have a new character. I'm gonna wait on adding her name to our list, just in case. We might consider it. I think it's worth to add to characters if it's after like two conversations, like the doctor. So let's see what we roll for this. Uh, if she's busy, then I'm thinking of what skill to use here. Persuade, which we don't have in this game. Fast talk, 5. Fast talk would be the most qualifying for this, and I don't have any points in that besides the base point amount of 5. So let's just try to talk to her normally. David attempts to talk to her, asking her if the professor is on site today. It is urgent. So while it does that, I might use a skill here, but
Ms. Walsh purses her lips, tapping a pen against the desk. Professor Price is a very busy man, Mr. She pauses, waiting for David to introduce himself.
okay, so let's see. We work at the Boston Public Library. Pardon me, my name is Dr. David Holloway. I work at the Boston Public Library. I spoke to, I believe, an acquaintance of the professor, Dr. Morgan, is it? Let's see what the Oracle says here. We're basically talking through the Oracle. Okay, here's what it says.
Ms. Walsh's eyebrows rise slightly at the mention of Dr. Morgan. Dr. Holloway, she says, her tone softening a fraction. While I can't disclose Professor Price's whereabouts, I can perhaps pass along a message. If you'd like to leave a note, I'll ensure it reaches him.
Let's say, okay, so this topic is very private, but we are, again, really urgent. Let's try fast talk. So, again, fast talk is 5. I have nothing in that department at all. Even in bargain, won't really qualify for this moment. So I get my D100 out. D10, D100. So we're trying to persuade her. Fast talk, 5 or less. I doubt it. Yeah, 56. So, um, I failed the role of fast talk, trying to convince her that it is urgent and I need to see him now. This cannot wait. All right. So she's getting defensive.
Ms. Walsh folds her arms, her expression firming. Dr. Holloway, I understand this may seem urgent to you, but I must insist you respect Professor Price's privacy. If you wish to contact him, you may leave a message, and I will forward it at the appropriate time.
Okay, let's throw a twist here. Not a huge twist. Let's say the professor enters the office behind us, holding a box of paperwork. Story hack, suddenly the professor enters the office from behind us, holding a box of loose papers. He pauses, seeing David and Miss Walsh speaking. All right, I'm going to put her character in now because it's become evident that she may be a small part. I'm going to put 2 stars for characters that are significant. Professor Elias is obviously significant. Dr. Alex Morgan is significant. Our boss, not really just yet. Rebecca is significant. Our son, ex-wife, they've been supportive characters so far, minor characters. But for her, let me go back to what I inquire about her information. Question the Oracle. Let's see, Miss Evelyn Walsh. And let's see, works for Professor. Just a little reminder of who she is exactly. Okay, now let me play back what the response was after our little story hack.
Professor Price sets down the box, peering over his spectacles at David. Dr. Holloway, I presume. Dr. Morgan gave you my card. I see.
Okay, so he knew we were visiting. This is probably due to the fact that they are, again, part of a private organization that deals with the paranormal, and I'm going to be rolling with that for some time until it's revealed, until the Oracle gets a taste of it. So let's see. I'm going to say David appears surprised and says, "That was quite quick. Can we speak privately about the matter?" All right, let's see what the Oracle says. No rules, I think, for this part just yet. Professor Price.
Professor Price nods, gesturing towards a small, cluttered office off to the side. Of course, Dr. Holloway. Please, come in.
Okay. So, let's see. Let's have Evelyn do something comical. Story hack. Evelyn sighs, sits back down, and continues working. Not sure if this will really do much, but let's see what the Oracle how the Oracle handles it.
The office is cramped, filled with books and strange artifacts. Professor Price gestures towards a chair, his eyes filled with a knowing curiosity. Now, Dr. Holloway, tell me about this urgent matter.
Okay. David sits down, and he mentions what he remembers regarding the first encounter with his great-great-grandfather, Edwin Holloway. Also mentions the manuscript, though the memory is scattershot due to the hospital visit following, and mentioning how that's how he met Dr. Morgan. Okay, I will play back. And let me mention that I will play back the text each time because I'm sure my voice gets boring enough for you guys.
Professor Price listens intently, his expression growing more serious with each detail. A spectral manifestation, you say? And a manuscript with your name in it? This is most intriguing, Dr. Holloway.
Okay, now I'm going to ask him, how do you and Dr. Morgan play a part in all of this? David will ask the professor how he and Dr. Morgan play a part in all of this. What is their interest in this supernatural event? And I can't forget the fact that this is almost Y2K. I've been kind of letting that slide away, laying that loose. I need to keep that as the core um, plot device. The fact that this is happening around Y2K. So here's what the professor says.
Professor Price leans back, his gaze intense. Dr. Holloway, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Dr. Morgan and I, we are part of a group that studies these anomalies.
Right. Okay, so they're part of a group, which again, that's pretty much what I was trying to push the story to. The group, David notices the door is still open. He whispers to the professor, "Is it safe to speak about this with your administrator nearby?" If the door is closed. We haven't really checked to see if the door was open or not. Okay, here's the response.
Professor Price gives a wry smile. Ms. Walsh is accustomed to the eccentricities of academia, Dr. Holloway. But perhaps a bit of discretion is still wise. He lowers his voice, leaning closer. We are a society of scholars, historians, and those who have encountered the impossible. We seek to understand the hidden corners of reality, the things that most people dismiss as myth or madness.
Okay. Let's ask him the event that occurred last night. What does it have to do with any bigger supernatural event? Does it? I mean, you know what? Let's mention this. I'm gonna try to put the. We'll try to push the Y2K thing. David leans back in his chair and appears confused as to why this event has unfolded days before, months before the turn of the century. Y2K. This sparks some interest with the professor. No skill rolls yet, and I think I took care of advancing or improving any skills from yesterday, or from the last time recording, which it looks like I have, so no check marks. Alright, here's what the response is.
Professor Price's eyes gleam with a mix of excitement and concern. Indeed, Dr. Holloway, the timing is peculiar. It seems we are dealing with forces that operate on a scale far grander than our own.
Let's see. David inquires about what kind of forces are you assuming? Are we talking the Greek pantheon of gods or demons, hell, heaven, anything specific? Or do you need more details here? Thor, Loki? Like, what are we talking here? All right, still responding. I wish I can show you guys, but again, I was having some trouble capturing my desktop for some reason. Okay, here is the long-awaited response.
Professor Price's voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper. Dr. Holloway, have you ever heard of the Cthulhu mythos?
I'm trying to figure out if this is too subtle, Cthulhu mythos, or because again, I don't. We'll go with it. Let's see. Do I have knowledge of this stuff? So occult. There is Cthulhu mythos, which I have 0, which means I can't roll for it. But I can roll for occult, knowing that it has to do with the supernatural. So I'm trying occult, which I have 15 in. Oh, holy crap. I rolled a 1. A solid 1. Okay. I don't have any points for Cthulhu Mythos. I can't roll to that. But I did roll a solid 1, a perfect, for occult skill. So David has some significant knowledge of occult supernatural, but not Cthulhu mythos specifically. That's what I'm about to send to the Oracle here. Okay, here's a response.
Professor Price's eyes widen slightly. Then you understand, Dr. Holloway, that there are entities beyond human comprehension, forces that lie dormant beneath the surface of reality, waiting to awaken.
All right, so David will ask, but why me? Why my great-great-grandfather? The manuscript. David says, but why me? Why my great-great-grandfather? Why the manuscript? This seems to be related too much to my ancestry. All right, let's hear it.
Professor Price leans forward, his voice grave. The blood remembers, Dr. Holloway. Your lineage holds a connection to these ancient forces, a connection that has now been reawakened.
Okay. So, David says, the manuscript then, you have to see it. It's back in my office, at the library. Do you have time today, at least to come by and perhaps take a look at it? Though I can't promise anything of safety because of what happened. It's just, this is overwhelming, and I'm trying to calculate a response here. So I'm trying to reply as David would. He's again, he's a smart, intelligent person. He's trying to figure out how to make sense of all this. Let's see what the professor says.
Professor Price's eyes gleam with a mix of caution and eagerness. Indeed, Dr. Holloway, a first-hand examination of this manuscript is crucial. I will accompany you to the library, but we must proceed with utmost care.
Okay.
These forces are not to be trifled with.
All right. David asks, before we leave, do these events unfold typically at night, as that's when it did happen? We had this manuscript, at least my assistant, Rebecca, did. Before sunset, nothing happened until I had the document. I'm trying to say that these things happen at night more or so. Let's see, darkness, right?
Professor Price nods slowly. These forces often thrive in darkness, Dr. Holloway. But they can also be drawn to those who are connected to them, regardless of the hour.
Okay. So let's do a time skip. Both the professor and David drive to the Boston Public Library, both in separate cars. They meet at the front entrance. It is early afternoon. Okay. We're back at the public library. Let's see what the response is.
The library's grand entrance looms before them, its imposing facade casting long shadows in the afternoon light. A few patrons mill about the steps, oblivious to the mysteries hidden within.
Right. Okay. David mentions to the professor that we have to play this safe because David is supposed to be off today to recover from the hospital visit. So he is hopeful that Rebecca will intercept their supervisor to let him inside. The boss of who is Walter Grayson. All right. This quick response.
The professor nods, adjusting his spectacles. Indeed, discretion is key. Let us proceed cautiously.
Okay, let's just roll for the entire moment from at the front door of the public library to his office, which is going to be sneak, which I don't have. It's 10. So we're rolling for sneak. 85. That's a fail. Okay. I failed the roll sneak as we attempt to walk through the public library's entrance up to David's office. Who do we encounter? I guess I could have just said it's his boss, but I'm curious what the oracle will use. As you let's see here. Oh, there's Walter Grayson. Is that his name?
As you and Professor Price attempt to
Yep.
slip past the front desk, a familiar figure emerges from the stacks. Walter Grayson, the head archivist, his brow furrowed in concern.
Okay. So, let's see. You know what? I have an idea for this. Story hack. Walter appears concerned seeing that his most trusted archivist is here and not at home. However, to our surprise, Walter recognizes the professor. This is something, this might go somewhere. We'll see. Maybe just through reputation, perhaps. Okay, here's the response.
Walter's eyes widen in surprise. Professor Price, what a unexpected pleasure. And David, you should be home resting. He glances between the two of you, a flicker of suspicion crossing his face. What brings you both here today?
Now, a question for the Oracle. Does Walter have any part in the group that Dr. Morgan and the professor are in? I'm assuming no. Perhaps Walter knows the professor through a family friend or reputation. Past acquaintances. Let's see how the Oracle takes this, because I'm trying to throw an idea here, but also questioning. Walter surprise. Let's see. It says
Walter's surprise suggests he's not part of the group, but his recognition of Professor Price hints at a past connection, perhaps through academic circles or shared interests.
okay, that makes sense. If this individual, if Professor Elias Price is a significant individual in the academic realm, then this head honcho of the Boston Public Library obviously has interacted with the professor, being from a school, Massachusetts University, works with the Boston Public Library, for books and resources, and these two most likely have crossed paths many, many times if they're both 40, 50 years plus years old. So it's obviously to no surprise that they know each other through name and face. But again, the priority here is the book, is the manuscript. Now, David struggles to give an excuse as to why he's here until Rebecca, who is in the aisle next door, runs over to see David. She does not know the professor, but she is assuming this is the person that Dr. Morgan was talking about. Don't recall if she knows about the card. I think she does know about the card in general. They rush back to the library after the hospital. So let's see what happens.
Rebecca's eyes widen as she sees David and the professor. Dr. Holloway, you're back. And, is this? She glances at Professor Price, a mix of curiosity and apprehension on her face.
So, okay, I have an idea here. This is going to be kind of just like, again, some comedy. We know, let's say she is roughly in her 20s, judging by the story so far. 20s or so. Dr. Elias Price is probably roughly in his 50s. I think this is entirely for comedy reasons or just some chemistry. I think Elias Price finds her attractive. Just want to throw this out there. I think this just like it's just a little flair, a little fling. So let's see how they go about this. The professor, knowing he is single, strangely enough, finds Rebecca to be quite interesting and wants to talk to her as he gets distracted by her genuine beauty. I'm kind of curious how this goes. So this could be like an anchor this could be like a problem, like an obstacle for for David to get the answers he needs. So Rebecca's distracting the professor with her youthfulness and her general beauty as a 20-something-year-old. Let's see.
Professor Price smiles warmly, extending a hand towards Rebecca. Professor Elias Price, at your service. And you are?
And how does Rebecca reply? And feel free to reply up to 4 sentences moving forward for each response, Gemini. That is an instruction I updated, but it hasn't been doing it because I think it's still stuck in its old instructions, so I'm just giving a little reminder. Here we go. Well, looks like it was a few sentences. Okay, here's how she responds.
Rebecca blushes slightly, shaking the professor's hand. Rebecca Thorne, Dr. Holloway's assistant. It's nice to meet you. She glances at David, a questioning look in her eyes. Dr. Holloway, who is this?
Yeah. So, before David can speak, the boss, Walter, interjects and says, David, what's going on here? Talk to me. We're very busy, as you can see, cataloging for the Y2K transition. Sorry, cataloging, yeah, brain fart, which is very often for me. But let's see what it says here. Listen.
Walter's voice takes on a stern tone as he addresses David, his gaze flickering between him, Rebecca, and the professor. I'm waiting for an explanation, David. This isn't a social gathering.
Okay, so I'm gonna have a little note here that Professor Price has a thing for Rebecca. I knew this will work out. I'm glad I did. I threw that little curveball in there. So, and it's true. We need to really get this. Okay, so how can David tell his boss about? Oh, right. I have an idea. David says to Walter, "Listen, sir. Did the head security guard from last night explain to you what happened?" I almost forgot about the security guard. He frowns, shaking his head. Okay, let's see.
Walter frowns, shaking his head. Security mentioned some water damage in your office, David. That's all. Now, what's going on here?
Okay. David looks to Rebecca, trying to see if she mentioned anything to Walter. Did she? That's a question for the Oracle. Trying to figure out if she mentioned anything to the boss, because I'm assuming they did talk when she got back to work, or she's been quiet about it.
Rebecca shakes her head slightly, her expression a mix of confusion and worry. I didn't want to alarm him, Dr. Holloway. I thought it was best to wait until you were here.
Okay. The boss, Walter, becomes very impatient, crosses his arms, takes all 3 of them into his office to talk. All right, so I have an idea here how this will pan out. Let's see what the response is.
Walter's office is cramped and cluttered, filled with stacks of books and papers. He gestures towards a few chairs, his expression grim. Now, someone explain to me what's happening. And it better be good.
Okay. David is about to talk, but Professor Elias interrupts and lies about a certain research project that Elias approached David for the university, knowing that David has some expertise in a certain area that he inquired about. Basically, Elias approached David for information, and he's being used as an advisor or a consultant. Let's see what the response is.
Professor Price clears his throat, a twinkle in his eye. Well, Walter, it seems I've stumbled upon a most fascinating historical puzzle, and Dr. Holloway here has the expertise to help me unravel it.
So, David smiles, not saying a word, hoping that Walter knows of David's general experience in history and his overall intelligence would speak for itself. Let's see. I probably should have rolled here, but again, Elias took over. He took the wheel here.
Walter raises an eyebrow, but his expression softens slightly. Well, David, you always were a bit of a history buff. But I hope this isn't interfering with your work here.
Let's say that while they are speaking, Rebecca inquires if she can leave, as it seems this issue is between the three of them. All right, sending that to the Oracle. Okay, Walter says.
Walter nods dismissively. Yes, Miss Thorne, you're dismissed. Leave us to our scholarly discussion.
Okay, Dr. Elias should respond here. Or Professor Elias. Professor Elias jokingly turns around and gives her his card and says, "Call me sometime. Perhaps a coffee?" Let's see how this goes. I'm really curious of the Oracle, probably shaking his head. Seriously?
Rebecca blushes, taking the card with a nervous smile. Sure, maybe. She glances at David, then hurries out of the office.
Okay, so now Elias is going to again lie that he's willing to have the school donate to the public library if David is able to be of help. Elias continues speaking to Walter, saying that his school, Masconic University, is willing to donate to the Boston Public Library if David acts as a consultant for the research project that Elias is in charge of. Of course, this is all a lie. All right. Let's see how this works out. All right.
Walter's eyes widen, and he leans forward, suddenly interested. A donation, you say? And David's expertise is required? Well, this is certainly a different matter.
All right. Now, let's say that Walter doesn't want to hold up. The mention of money would help the public library in so many different areas. Here, let me say this to the Oracle. Walter smiles. He leans back in his old rickety chair and says that a donation would indeed help the public library, as funding has been cut in recent years. Many of the maintenance members require certain repairs. What donation are we speaking of here? What amount? Let's see. Oh, sorry. I'll play it back now.
Professor Price casually mentions a figure of $10,000, emphasizing the potential for further contributions depending on the success of the research project.
Okay. Now, Walter looks to David and says, "You've been awfully quiet. What is your opinion on all this?" Let's see. And then, let's say, let me send that, because that's kind of asking our character. I don't want it to take the helm of our character. Okay, looks like he's going to ask us.
Walter leans forward, his expression a mix of curiosity and suspicion. David, you've been awfully quiet. What's your take on all this?
Now, fast talk. Here's the thing. We can lie, which again we're not really good at doing. But what if David speaks using his intelligence? He's a very smart guy for the most part. What if he uses the situation as a storytelling device? So not really essentially a lie, just not connecting him to the lie, not connecting him to what's going on. So I'm trying to figure out how to word this to the Oracle. David can say, Elias is reaching out to me because of my knowledge in the supernatural. Elias is researching potential story points for fiction, perhaps to uh, allow for some interesting topics. So how would I say this? David says that Elias wants him to recommend a list full of books that relate to either fiction or nonfiction having to do with international waters, travels, boating, hallucinations, the effects of being out in sea for extended periods of time, boating, something like that. So let's see how the Oracle handles this. That's just kind of a mix mash of different things. Looks like, oh, I probably should have rolled for it, but, well, no. Never mind. I haven't rolled too much today.
Professor Price nods enthusiastically. Indeed, Walter, Dr. Holloway's knowledge of maritime history and folklore would be invaluable to my research. He pauses, glancing at David. Of course, we would compensate Dr. Holloway for his time and expertise.
Okay, so Professor kind of took over there. David was speaking, then Professor spoke to to Walter. So does Walter approve of all this? Even with the generous donation amount? All right, I'm going to send that. And we'll probably close off here very soon. It's getting a little late for me. Walter, okay, we'll play this response.
Walter steeples his fingers, a thoughtful expression on his face. A generous offer, Professor. But I'll need to see some official paperwork before any final decisions are made.
Okay. Story hack. Professor Elias stands up and shakes Walter's hand in appreciation for his time. He asks Walter if he and David may go back to David's office, to find a certain book for now, just to get things started, that David has put aside for the professor. See if that works out.
Walter nods, his eyes twinkling with newfound interest. Of course, Professor. David, why don't you show the professor to your office? And be sure to gather any relevant materials for his research.
Okay, so David and Professor Elias go to David's office. Is the door locked? I'm assuming it is. It should be, because Rebecca was supposed to make sure it's locked. Uh-oh. Not what I expected.
The office door is slightly ajar, a faint musty odor clinging to the air around it.
Interesting. David's hand is on the door. He looks to Elias with concern, saying that his office should have been closed and locked this entire time. How does Elias react? I have an idea. Which is not... Let's see.
Professor Price's eyes narrow, and he reaches into his coat pocket, pulling out a small, silver talisman. Do not worry, Dr. Holloway. I have ways of dealing with unwanted intruders.
Now, let's take a little break here and compare Gemini to how GPT was in the past. I truly enjoy Gemini's responses better. They are within the confines of the instructions, but GPT's voice was miles better because in situations like this where you guys can't see the responses because of whatever issue OBS was having, the GPT's voice was, whether I was just using the plugin for Chrome or the actual enhanced voice mode, which I tested a long time ago before I was recording the Gray In. It wasn't really a long time ago, but you get the idea. GPT's voice was arguably better. In this case, it's just that kind of robotic. To some extent, it's normal. It sounds normal, but it's robotic in the pauses. But I have to make do because I chose Gemini to continue the story, and again, it's worth the responses. Now, with the talisman, what does Elias do? David stands back to watch what unfolds. So kind of a question and a narrative hack. Let's see what happens.
Professor Price holds the talisman aloft, its surface shimmering with an eerie green light. He whispers an arcane incantation, and the air around the office door crackles with energy. The door creaks open fully, revealing the darkened interior.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. What is inside the office? What has been revealed? It's during the day, so I'm assuming darkness isn't going to be an issue here. A shadowy figure. Okay, sorry. I'll play it back.
A shadowy figure cowers in the corner, its form indistinct but vaguely humanoid. It whimpers, its eyes glinting with fear as it shrinks back from the talisman's light.
Oh. I have an idea for this. This was my idea, I think. It's a cult member. So, story hack, it is a intruder, a cult member, perhaps a rival to the organization that the professor is part of. This was my idea. Let's see if it works. Let's see.
The intruder raises its head, revealing a pale, gaunt face with feverish eyes. It clutches a tattered book, its lips moving in a silent incantation. A faint, fishy odor permeates the air.
Story hack. This individual is a human, but he is a cult member of one of the Cthulhu mythos. He is here to steal the manuscript. Is he holding it? This is getting good. The intruder looks. Okay, let's see what happens here.
The intruder lunges forward, the tattered book clutched in his hand. But it's not the manuscript, it's a different tome, filled with strange symbols and diagrams. He screams, his voice raspy and unnatural. The tally belongs to the Deep Ones. You cannot keep it from us.
This works too, because again, my knowledge of Cthulhu mythos is very spacious. So I understand that Cthulhu and mythos and the gods have a lot of relation to have a lot of events happen in the water. So this does actually make sense. Tally belongs to the Deep Ones. Okay, we'll close here. There's going to be probably an encounter or something breaks out here in the public library, which that's ironic. So for now, I'm going to close this episode out. Thank you for watching. This was very good. I do apologize that you guys don't have the screen here as usual, but I hope hearing the responses was adequate enough. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.